Hi, everyone. Thank you all for joining us for today's exciting Memberlina with CyberX for the ultimate cybersecurity plan for architects. Today, Vaughan and Tony will be taking you through the 9 keys of cybersecurity and how to protect your firm from a ransomware attack. With the current climate, cyber threats are becoming all the more apparent, and you need to be ready in case an attack happens to you. Vaughan's business, CyberX, protects small and medium-sized businesses from ransomware attacks by deploying best practice for cybersecurity solutions. For the last 25 years, Vaughan has been a trusted IT network administrator for Australian businesses that need reliable and results-focused technical expert. Specialising in supporting organisations with 10 to 50 users, Vaughan provides practical solutions in a world with an ever-complex cybersecurity risks. If you'd like to pop any questions into the Q&A box, Vaughan and Tony have allocated 15 minutes at the end of the presentation to answer any of your questions, and Tony will also be answering your questions throughout the session. Thank you for your time, and I'll be handing over to Vaughan now.
Thank you, Joel. I'll just share my screen as there's quite a lot to get through today, and then we'll get started. As Joel mentioned, I've been working as a computer network admin with an IT service provider for the past 25 years. Over that time, I've been exposed to many computer networks and applications, some that have been excellent and some that have had room for improvement. Today, I'm going to share with you some key learnings with respect to cybersecurity. Did you know that the cost of cybercrime in Australia was $29 billion in 2020? The right cybersecurity plan requires a comprehensive approach across 9 key areas. Today, I'll explain what these areas are, some common mistakes, and how to move towards best practice and peace of mind. Our plan will help protect your organisation from a ransomware attack. Two of the most common techniques that the black hats, the hackers, use to target an organisation are 1, phishing or scam emails. The black hats will send emails to staff in your organisation that will either contain links to malicious websites or attachments that contain malware. Or the second approach is that the black hats will try and get staff to visit a malicious website when they are using their web browser. For instance, by sharing links to malicious websites on social media. In either case, if the malware is not detected, this will allow the black hats to infect computers on your network. Once the black hats have access to a computer on your network, then eventually they may be able to launch a ransomware attack, as you will see later. A survey undertaken by the Australian Cybersecurity Centre in 2020 found that 62% of the 1,700 small businesses that responded had been a victim of cybercrime. That is roughly 2 out of every 3 organisations. Today, I'll explain how you can take action to block most malicious emails before they even reach your staff's email inbox, protect your staff from accidentally visiting malicious websites, and determine if your backup solution is ransomware safe and whether it will really protect your data in the event of a cyber attack. As we go through today's session, if you have any questions, as Joel mentioned, please use the Q&A to ask questions at any time. During this session, I have a colleague, Tony, who is monitoring the Q&A. Tony will endeavour to answer as many of your questions as possible. And for any questions where using the chat to provide a detailed response is challenging, I'll do my best to answer those questions during the Q&A session at the end. We will now examine the 9 keys of cybersecurity. The first area is staff training. Staff training looks at a platform to deliver ongoing training and testing of staff, rather than a one-off training session that is often soon forgotten, with staff going back to their old ways after a couple of weeks. Training staff to be aware of the risks, to understand what to look out for and how to respond, using ongoing phishing, that's scam emails, and training campaigns will add another layer of security to your organisation, and staff will often be your last line of defence. Email screening. Many scam attacks are attempted via email. Therefore, it is essential to block as many of these emails as possible before they are delivered to staff. If scam emails never reach the inbox of your staff, then you don't even have to rely on staff making the right choices. Email screening reduces the risk of a cyber breach by preventing malicious emails from being delivered to your staff's inbox. Similarly, web screening reduces the risk of a cyber breach by preventing users from accidentally visiting malicious websites when using their web browser. A ransomware safe backup system. Your backup system is your insurance policy. In a worst case scenario, if you do experience a cyber attack, say a ransomware attack, if your backups remain uncompromised, while the attack will still be a significant disruption, it won't become a disaster. If your backups remain intact, you will be able to recover your data without having to consider paying the ransom. We look at the CyberX backup system and identify the key features that you need to look for in a ransomware safe backup system. Password management. The two most common mistakes that people make in relation to passwords are: one, using the same or a similar password across multiple sites, or two, storing their passwords in Word, Excel, or some other insecure method. We show you how to install and use a free password manager. The password manager enables you to easily use a strong and unique password for every site and to store your passwords securely. Patch management. Patch management is the process of applying updates to software to correct errors in the software. Applying software updates in a regular and timely manner to address security vulnerabilities will reduce an organization's security risk. We show you how to implement a patch management solution. The solution, Action 1, is free if you have less than 100 endpoints and is reasonably priced for endpoints above the 100 endpoint limit. Two-factor authentication. Two-factor authentication is a second independent method of confirming your login authentication. The primary method will typically be the password for the account. The second method can be an app on your phone, an SMS text to your phone, or an email message with a code. We show you how to implement two-factor authentication using a free app on your phone. Two-factor authentication is particularly important for high-value services, like your email account, which could be used for identity theft, and for services like online banking. Least privilege access. The principle of least privilege access is to have sufficient privileges to complete the tasks that you need to perform, but no more. In other words, that you have just enough system access to get the job done. We demonstrate the least privilege principle with hands-on examples using standard out-of-the-box Microsoft Windows features. Lockdown of externally accessible services. We consider the following scenarios. On-premise servers that are accessible from the internet, for example, web servers and FTP servers. We also look at terminal servers, but as there are some key differences between terminal servers and web servers, we consider terminal servers separately. And then we look at the other side of the terminal server, the users that are working from home. Now I'd appreciate some feedback. In the Q&A, I'd appreciate if you can identify which of the key risk or risk areas that you feel that your organization needs to focus on. The risks are numbered. So for example, if you feel that staff training is the most important area, you would enter a 1. Or if you're concerned about staff training and your backup system, you would enter 1,4. I'll pause to give you some time to consider and respond. Okay, I can see that green's interested in the backup system. Quite a few for the backup system, and we've also got patch management. Okay, the backup system's getting a fair bit of. That's interesting. Excellent. Okay, well, I'll move on. Well, the backup system is what we're going to cover next. I'm now going to show a short video that provides an overview of ransomware and explains the two types of ransomware attacks. There might be a short test later, so please keep an eye out for the two types of ransomware attacks.
How much is your organization's data and reputation worth? Are you 100% sure that your backups are safe from the latest ransomware attacks? A data breach or ransomware attack can cripple your business and result in long-term damage to your company's brand and reputation. Did you know that the cost of cybercrime alone in Australia was $29 billion in 2020? A survey undertaken by the Australian Cyber Security Centre found that 62% of the 1,762 small businesses that responded have been a victim of cybercrime. The cost of remediating a ransomware attack will always be significant, therefore it is worth spending time to ensure that you have the defences in place to prevent an attack or to mitigate data loss in the event that your defences are breached. What is ransomware? Ransomware is a piece of malicious software that, once executed, blocks access to the contents of files, typically documents and data files, by encrypting the files. In order to regain access to your documents, a sum of money must be paid to the attacker, a ransom. If you pay the ransom, then the attackers promise, although in some cases they don't deliver, to provide you with a key and software that you can use to unencrypt your data. Some of the ransoms that have been demanded have been well in excess of $100K. That kind of outlay can put an SME out of business, and that is exactly what has happened to some SMEs that have suffered a ransomware attack. How is a ransomware attack performed? The ransomware attack is done either through bot software is written specifically to automatically inject ransomware into a system or systems, or by a human attacker gaining remote access to a computer network via a remote access tool, and then executing ransomware directly on that network. The human or remote control type of attack has become more prevalent in recent times and is particularly dangerous. Where a knowledgeable attacker has remote access to the target network with administrator privileges, the attacker can perform a custom attack based on the attributes of the particular network that they are attacking. For example, they can identify backups, both local and off-site, and seek to delete or encrypt these backups, rendering them useless, making it more likely that the victim organization will need to consider paying the ransom. Prevention. Steps that can be taken to prevent a ransomware attack. 1. Ongoing user education. Ensure that staff are aware of the types of cyber threats that exist and how to recognize them in practice. We can help. 2. Apply security updates to software promptly. Security updates are addressing known vulnerabilities, so don't give attackers a free kick at your network by not addressing these vulnerabilities. We can help. 3. Implement a multi-layered antivirus approach. No single antivirus product should be considered infallible all of the time. Therefore, it is prudent to implement a layered approach. Look for strong ransomware protection in at least one of the products deployed. We can help. 4. Email screening. Effective email screening can identify many hostile emails before they reach the inbox of your staff, thus reducing the risk that you need to rely on the vigilance of staff to recognize a threat. We can help. 5. Use role-based authentication and apply least privilege rules to these roles. Only provide users with the privileges that they need, and no more, to perform a task. We can help. 6. Implement strong authentication rules, including using two-factor authentication, or 2FA. We can help. 7. Password management. Choose passwords that would be difficult for others to guess and then don't update them regularly. If users choose strong passwords, then so long as they are not compromised, there is no need to change them frequently. This approach works best when used with a password manager. We can help. 8. Lock down externally accessible services, such as RDP, where they are not necessary, and enforce secure access restrictions for services that are accessible externally where they are necessary. 9. Backups, your last line of defense. Backups should be considered as a form of insurance against hardware faults that result in loss of data, software faults like bugs that have serious unintended consequences, user errors, physical disasters like flood, fire, malicious events like virus strike, ransomware attack. We can help.
Now we'll have a look at what makes a backup system ransomware safe. If you experience a ransomware attack, the black hats, the hackers, are going to target your data and your backups. The black hats will target your backups because they know from experience that if an organization can't restore their data from their backups, then the victim is more likely to consider paying the ransom. In a human remote control type of ransomware attack, the following will be targeted by the black hats. Your data, that is, all your documents, project files, and databases on your servers, your on-site backups, and any off-site backups that are accessible from your servers. The key question that you need to ask is in relation to your off-site backups. If you don't have an off-site backup, then your backup system is not ransomware safe. If you do have an off-site backup, but your off-site backup is accessible from your servers, then your backup is not ransomware safe. A ransomware safe backup is an off-site backup that is not accessible from your servers. I'll repeat that last statement because it is very important. A ransomware safe backup is an off-site backup that is not accessible from your servers. The reason that the backup is ransomware safe is that if the backup is not accessible from your servers, then it won't be accessible to the black hats either. This is a crucial concept to understand. If you're not entirely sure whether you have an off-site backup, or if you know that you have an off-site backup, but you're not sure whether that backup is accessible from your servers, then you need to speak with your IT administrator. Or you can schedule a complimentary remote support session with one of our support engineers to ensure that your backups are ransomware safe and can be relied upon if needed. If you don't find out that your backups are not ransomware safe until after you have been a victim of a ransomware attack, then that will be too late. I'll now show a video which provides an overview of the CyberX backup system and explains how it operates, and demonstrates how the second offsite backup is not accessible from your servers, which is why that backup is ransomware safe.
Hello, this is Chloe. In this video, I will explain to you how our backup system works. The CyberX backup system is a managed service. This means that we monitor the backups to ensure that they are performed. We verify your backups both on-site and off-site. If an error is detected, CyberX support will investigate and resolve the error. We periodically perform test restores to confirm that the backups can be restored. This makes the CyberX backup system ideal for organizations that don't have a high level of in-house backup or disaster recovery expertise. There are 4 copies of your backup, 2 copies on-site, and 2 copies off-site. Of the off-site copies of the backup, only 1 copy is accessible from your on-premise network. The fact that the second off-site copy is inaccessible is the key to making that backup ransomware safe. The backup system is available for both Microsoft Windows and Linux. In the first step, a backup of your server is performed. This backup is verified immediately after the backup image has been created. If an error occurs during the backup, or the verification of the backup image, or the backup isn't started, or the backup doesn't complete successfully, but no error is generated, we will be notified and a support engineer will investigate and resolve the error. If the backup is completed successfully, this backup will be stored on volume, on Site 1. On a daily basis, all completed backups are copied from volume, on Site 1 to on Site 2. This copy is a push copy, in that the copy is performed by your server. On a daily basis, all completed backups are copied off-site from your premises to CyberX's data center, on Site 2 to off Site 1. Again, this copy is a push copy, in that this copy is also performed by your server. On a daily basis, all off-site backups are copied from the custom accessible volume at CyberX off Site 1 to the custom inaccessible volume off Site 2. In contrast to all previous copies, this copy is a pull copy, in that this copy is performed by a CyberX server rather than your server. In the event that your network is compromised by a ransomware attack, depending on the IT expertise of the attackers, the following backup copies could be destroyed: on Site 1, on Site 2, and off Site 1. However, the off Site 2 volume is never accessible from your network. The off Site 2 copy is created by the CyberX server, and each backup image in this backup set is only ever copied once. This is why the off Site 2 copy will always be safe from a ransomware attack. The off Site 2 copy of the backup set is verified on a weekly basis.
We will now move to another key risk area, staff training. So, why is staff training important? Because security is not just about software vulnerabilities. Security is also about people, your staff. Countermeasures like antivirus, patch management, email screening, web filtering, all of these will reduce your risk of a breach, and they're all worth doing. But none of these technologies should be considered perfect all of the time, which is why you need a multi-layered approach to security. Staff should be another layer of your cybersecurity defense, and staff will often be your last line of defense. The black hats, the hackers, will target your staff to try and get their security credentials, or they will try to get your staff to run malicious software to provide them with unauthorized access to your network, or they will try to get your staff to launch a virus attack inside your network, for example, a ransomware attack. The staff training platform has 2 components. 1, testing. Every month, phishing, that is scam emails, like the real life scenario I mentioned at the beginning of today's session in the second slide, are sent to staff. If staff click on the links in these emails or open any attachments, then they're given immediate real-time feedback on what they should have looked out for, how they could have identified that the email was a scam email. Experience has shown that this approach makes staff more vigilant and more wary about clicking on links in emails or opening attachments. Ongoing testing using real-life day-to-day scenarios has been shown to be very effective at training staff to make smarter choices over time. The second component is training. Every month, staff will be prompted to view an educational video, typically of 5 to 15 minutes duration. These educational videos cover various aspects of security. For instance, not oversharing employer activity on social media, document disposal, and the like. The videos are engaging and provide information in a way that is more likely to be remembered and retained, thus leading to safer cyber behaviour. There is a saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So let's have a quick look at the training content. At the top, there is featured content. The Inside Man is a popular series. Let's have a look at the preview.
You think this is about money? This is about power. Real power. The power to know how people are going to react before they know themselves. To mold their thoughts, to shape their behavior. The power to bestow great fortunes or take them away. To choose who wins an election, who wins a war. That is real power.
He wants something. He's been buying up firms all across the world, assembling technologies and bits of code.
He wants the algorithm.
So he has to buy a whole company in order to get it.
I could just hack my way into the system, but these days, it's easier to hack humans.
We need your help, Mr. Shepherd. And you may very well need ours. Help us stop him.
You won't be alone.
We can make a difference if we work together.
Whatever it takes.
Don't move! I said, don't move!
The Inside Man is a Netflix-style series that combines authentic hacking and social engineering scenarios with engaging drama. The series educates your staff on real-world security threats while keeping them entertained. I'll show you some of the other featured content. There are different types of training content, and they cover a range of topics. The Diamond subscription has over 1,400 items of training content. In conjunction with the testing, training leads to better cybersecurity awareness and culture over time. I now want to talk about another key component of cybersecurity, email screening, in a little bit more detail. Whilst both Microsoft 365 and Google Gmail include email scanning, their email systems are missing a couple of key features. The first is the concept of trusted and non-trusted senders, also known as whitelists and blacklists. The majority of email threats are going to be sent by black hats, who will be someone that you don't know, or someone who has tried to infect someone else within your organization or another organization previously, rather than a friend or a client or a supplier, which is someone that you do know. While it is still possible for a friend to be infected by malware and then have that malware trawl their address book to try and infect all of their contacts, the reality is that the overwhelming majority of email threats will come from email addresses that you don't know. So that means we can use the concept of trust to add intelligence to our email screening. There are three categories of trust. Firstly, the whitelist or the white hats. These are senders who are trusted. These are people, actually their email addresses that you know. Your friends, family, clients, suppliers, people who work at council, etc. A good email gateway will automatically add people that you send an email to your whitelist. The second category is the blacklist or the black hats. The black hats are the opposite of the white hats. These are people, again, their email addresses that are not to be trusted. Emails that are sent from email addresses that are in the blacklist will automatically be deleted. Emails that are sent from a blacklisted email address will never reach the recipient. The recipient won't even be aware that a message from a blacklisted sender was sent to them. And finally, there is a third category, unclassified. These are senders that are yet to be classified as either white hats or black hats. They could be a new client or prospect contacting you for the first time, or an external organization sending, for example, a promotional email. Or they could be a new black hat email address trying to contact someone in your organization for the first time. The email gateway can use these three categories to refine and improve the screening of incoming emails. Emails from whitelisted email addresses are automatically allowed unless there is an explicit threat, for instance, an attachment with a virus, while emails from blacklisted email addresses are automatically blocked. And emails from unclassified email addresses are less trusted than whitelisted email addresses, and therefore are more likely to be moved to admin or user quarantine for further review. This brings us to another key feature of an email gateway, message quarantine. An email gateway will perform numerous tests on each incoming email: anti-spam, antivirus, anti-spoofing, and various content checks and the like. Some emails, like those sent by a blacklisted sender or from a blacklisted email server, will automatically be deleted, while other emails, like those sent by a whitelisted sender, will automatically be released unless there is an explicit threat, like an infected attachment. However, messages from unclassified senders may require a human to review before a final determination can be made whether to release or delete the message. Depending on the risk profile of the incoming message, a message could be moved to admin or user quarantine. A message that is considered risky will be moved to admin quarantine, and that means that the message will be reviewed by an experienced IT admin before a decision is made to release or delete the message. Or the message could be moved to user quarantine, in which case the incoming message will be reviewed by the intended recipient, the end user, prior to the message either being released to their inbox or being deleted by the user. If you're finding this a little difficult to follow, it will make more sense after you watch the video on email screening and you can see how an email gateway works in practice. In today's session, there isn't enough time to cover all 9 keys of cybersecurity in detail. However, I do want to introduce the key cybersecurity features that you should be implementing or at least considering. Another key component of cybersecurity is web filtering. Web filtering is similar to email screening in the sense that both technologies look to block threats before the end user is exposed to them. So when email screening and web filtering are doing their job, you don't have to rely on staff making smart choices because the technology is screening the threats before they even reach your staff. Many endpoint and antivirus solutions include some level of web filtering because the internet is not only a treasure trove of useful information, the internet is also a minefield of potential risks. But perhaps not surprisingly, a dedicated web filtering solution will have a far more extensive database, content categories and the like, than a non-dedicated antivirus solution that has other roles to perform as well. Web filtering solutions reduce your risk of a cyber breach by preventing users from inadvertently visiting a malicious website when surfing the web. And they do this for a small cost. I now want to spend a little bit of time considering a scenario which illustrates the need for a multi-layered approach to security. Why it is important to cover all the bases, for the want of a better description. Why it is important to review all 9 keys of cybersecurity and implement them as appropriate for your organization, rather than just implementing some of the components. Let's consider the following scenario. We have an employee, Fred, who has been sent a phishing email by a black hat. And that phishing email contains a link to a remote access Trojan, which if installed on Fred's computer, will allow the black hats to remotely control Fred's computer and provide the black hats with remote access to the firm's computer network. On the email, where it says fix errors, click here, that's actually a link to the malware. In this scenario, we will assume that Fred works for an architecture firm that has implemented all of the appropriate countermeasures for their organization. So, in the first instance, as this email has been sent by someone outside of your organization that has not been whitelisted by your email screening, this scam email would have been quarantined or deleted. Emails from delivery providers like UPS, DHL, FedEx, Australia Post and the like are a common attack vector used by black hats. As a result, these type of scam emails are considered high risk and are moved to admin quarantine by default rather than user quarantine. Therefore, in real life, Fred would never have received or even seen this scam email. However, for the purposes of the example, we will assume that in this instance, that the email was moved to user quarantine. So the email is now in Fred's user quarantine. If Fred had been with the firm for some months, Fred would be receiving monthly cybersecurity testing and training. So Fred would know that before opening attachments or clicking on links in emails, you need to check the sender, make sure that the domain name is the genuine domain name for the sending organization, and check the link. Make sure that the link is from the domain of the sending organization. So if we just go back and have a quick look at that email, you can see here that the email purports to be from UPS. So therefore, the domain name, which is to the right of the @ sign, should be if this is a genuine email from UPS, should have UPS's domain. Now, if you weren't sure what UPS's domain was, you could do a quick Google search and do something like UPS Delivery Australia. And I guarantee you on the first page, and probably the first result, would be the UPS website. And you'd be able to see then that the UPS domain is ups.com, not this ups-shipping.com. So straight away, you know that this is a scam email. So it wouldn't even be necessary to hover that over the link. Now this is a screenshot of the email here, so you can't see, but in the real life, if you were looking at this email in either Outlook or in quarantine, if you hover over the link, you can actually see where the link is going. And I can guarantee you that this link wasn't going to www.ups.com. This would have been going to some random site like www.welcometothehouseofpain.com. So again, you'd know that this is a scam email. So if we return to where we were, Let's assume that in this instance, that when Fred was reviewing his email quarantine, he was he was also on the phone to his partner. So Fred was distracted and not paying attention while he was actioning his email quarantine. As a result, Fred released the email from his quarantine. So Fred has released the email from his quarantine, and the email is now in his inbox. Fred is expecting a delivery, so again, he doesn't check the sender or the link. Instead, he clicks on the link. At this point, web filtering almost certainly will block Fred's web browser from accessing the malicious link. But for the purpose of the example, in this instance, let's assume that web filtering doesn't block access to the link. So instead, Fred downloads and attempts to launch the malware, the remote access Trojan installer. Fred has now attempted to launch the malware, the remote access Trojan installer. But as Fred's firm has reviewed and implemented all appropriate cybersecurity policies, Fred won't have the necessary privileges to install new applications by default. Instead, Fred will be prompted to provide local admin credentials to obtain elevated privileges to install the application. If Fred had been with the firm for some months, Fred would be receiving monthly cybersecurity testing and training. Fred would realize that being prompted to install an application when supposedly updating delivery information on a web portal doesn't make sense. So Fred would not enter the local admin credentials. Rather, at this point, he would realize that he made a mistake when clicking on the link in the email. But for the purpose of the example, let's assume that Fred does enter the local admin credentials. Fred has now entered the local admin credentials, and the remote access Trojan installer is running. It is likely that the endpoint antivirus will either block the installer, or if not, prompt Fred that the activity could be suspicious and request confirmation to continue. However, this is not guaranteed, as the black hats will be trying to configure their malware so that it won't be flagged as a threat. Again, at this point, if prompted, Fred should realize that being prompted to install an application when supposedly updating delivery information on a web portal doesn't make sense. But let's assume for the purpose of the example that the endpoint antivirus doesn't block the installer. The remote access Trojan is now installed on Fred's computer, and that compromises Fred's computer, which is definitely bad news both for Fred and the firm. But for the black hats to undertake a successful ransomware attack, they need access to the firm's servers so that they can study how the firm's backups work and access all the firm's data. So the black hats will need to move from controlling Fred's computer to controlling the firm's servers. Being able to do this is not a given, particularly if Fred's employer is undertaking patch management on a regular and ongoing basis. In this example scenario, we will assume that the black hats were able to traverse Fred's computer network and obtain admin level access to the firm's servers. This would allow the black hats to launch a ransomware attack where the following would be compromised: the firm's data, that is, all your documents, project files, and databases on your servers, the firm's on-site backups, and any off-site backups that are accessible from the firm's servers. However, if the firm has a ransomware safe backup system in place, all is not lost. They would still be able to recover their data from the inaccessible offsite backup that could not be accessed by the black hats. While the ransomware attack would still be disruptive, the firm would be able to recover from the ransomware attack without having to consider paying the ransom. Hopefully what this example has shown is that while people will typically be your firm's greatest asset, people can also make mistakes. And that while countermeasures like antivirus, patch management, email screening, and web filtering are all worth doing and will reduce your risk of a breach, None of these technologies should be expected to be perfect all of the time, which is why you need a multi-layered approach to security. Much like a commercial airplane has multiple levels of redundancy, 2 engines, 2 pilots, and so on. Today, we have explored 4 of the key cybersecurity topic areas: a ransomware safe backup system, and we've also had a high-level overview of staff training, email screening, and web filtering. For the remaining topics, tomorrow, I will share links to recordings and other resources which you can access at any time that will help you implement a comprehensive cybersecurity plan. When you registered for today's session, there was a tick box for whether the association would pass on your contact details. For those of you who ticked the box, I will be emailing everyone a link to these resources tomorrow. For those that didn't tick the box or who can't remember, Tony is about to drop my email address into the Q&A, and it's also there on the screen. All you need to do is send me an email with the subject cybersecurity so that I can ensure that you're on the list. Alternatively, you can enter your email address into the Q&A right now. We will now move to the Q&A session. I'll leave my contact details on the screen. You're welcome to email me with any questions that you have about today's webinar or with any of the other resources that I will be sharing with you. If you have found some of the information a bit overwhelming and would prefer to have a one-on-one virtual meeting, you can make an appointment via our website using the link shown on the screen. All participants in this seminar are entitled to a complimentary 30-minute session. For those of you who don't have any questions, thank you for your time today. I hope that you found today's session to be a benefit.
Thank you for the excellent presentation today, by the way, Vaughan. It was awesome.
Thank you.
It's great to hear about the 9 keys of cybersecurity. That'll be invaluable to our members, and I'm sure everyone can appreciate that. I see that a lot of people have actually dropped their email into the Q&A box.
Yes, we will save that afterwards. I think I know how to save chat. I'll have to figure out how to save Q&A.
I just thought I'd let you know as well. So as a quick reminder to our members, the Institute's insurance partner plan to cover also has a few words that they'd like to say. So I'd just like to pass over to Jonathan Lamb for a few words.
Thank you, Joel. Yeah, just a quick reminder, that was an excellent presentation. So thank you, Vaughan. I don't think many of us, you don't have to go very far or turn the TV on or off to see that the cyber threat is very real and becoming more prevalent everywhere you look. And just a quick reminder that as plan cover, an insurance broker, we have access to insurance products that do protect you and help you recover from a cyber incident. So if you are wanting to learn more, then please reach out to us via our branches across the country. Or otherwise, if anyone has a question from the Q&A, please type it in now. I'm happy to try and answer anything that does pop up right now. Otherwise, you can get in touch with either myself or one of our other staff members through your contacts, and we'll be happy to answer it or proceed with any inquiries from there. But thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Okay, I'm just taking a look at the Q&A. There was a question about VPN, which just scrolled off the screen. I'm trying to, maybe Tony's answered it. Okay, it looks like, yeah, Tony has answered it fine. Okay, well, I think How does backup work if your business is using Microsoft 365? Well, Microsoft 365 is primarily for your email. And in relation to your OneDrive, you can and you should actually back up both separately. In fact, you should back up both your email and your OneDrive separately, so that in the event that something untoward happens, you're not reliant on using the built-in Microsoft tools to assist you with that. And we can provide you with some information on some tools that you consider for that. What is key management in relation to VPN? Matthew, I'm not quite sure what you're asking me there. You might have to provide some more information. And you're certainly welcome to send me an email. Hang on, what happened then? I think it might have scrolled up. Refer to question above from Tim. Okay. Run a VPN from remote access staff. A VPN can add additional levels of risk. One of the resources that we share, which is the last resource on configuring external access to your network, covers how to implement a VPN securely. So, I mean, basically VPNs are a good idea, but you just need to implement them in the appropriate manner. You have a cloud, Andrew Wilson, you have a cloud backup which runs nightly to Google Drive. Well, the question is whether the backup that runs to Google Drive is accessible from your server. Because if your Google Drive backup is accessible directly from your server in a human remote control style of attack, the contents of your Google Drive can be encrypted, which basically means the backup is rendered useless. The way that the CyberX backup system is better is that the second offsite backup is not accessible from your server. So if your network and your server is compromised, while some of your backups will be at risk, the second offsite backup is ransomware safe. So that's the key feature that's the key concept that you need to be certain about in relation to your backups. You must have a backup which is not directly accessible from your server, because the way ransomware attacks are carried out these days is frequently the black hats are getting access to your local network and eventually to your servers. And then not only do they encrypt all of your data, but they also encrypt all of the backups that they can access to make it more likely that you have to consider paying the ransom. So they're definitely going to target any backups that are directly accessible from your servers. Yes, Luke, definitely you want PCs for business use only. You don't want to be sharing PCs for home use. I mean, that is definitely a challenge. Kids do like to try things, and I guess while there's nothing wrong with that, you do want them to have their own system, and preferably on a separate, like on a separate network. So basically, you split your internet connection between two networks. Like you have your home network, like which is where your kids' systems reside, and then you have a separate, like business network where your work computers reside. And that way, in the worst case scenario, if your kids do get a virus, it's only going to affect like your home network. It's not going to affect your business systems. We have an IT provider, just want to show that. Ricky, you basically should be sharing the information that we're going to share with you tomorrow, and basically like review it with them, like ensure that you have email screening in place, ensure that you have web filtering in place, ensure that you're doing staff training, make sure that your backup system is ransomware safe, and so on. Daniel, that's, as I mentioned earlier, the remote VPN is definitely the way to go for staff working from home. You just need to ensure that it's been implemented correctly. And we have a module in the resources that I'll be sharing with you tomorrow that you can work through. But yeah, remote VPN is basically the right way to go. You just need to make sure that you've implemented it securely. Okay, well, I think
that's taken us to our time today. As Vaughan said, his contact's there. So if anyone has any further questions, contact Vaughan at vw@disaster-recovery.com.au, and he'll be able to answer any of your inquiries. Thank you all for joining us today, and I hope you all have a great afternoon.